thank you for joining us this week at the Central Methodist Church in Windhoek. We are this month in our worship services celebrating the season of creation, and we are thinking about the wonder of God's creation, but also our responsibility towards creation. And so today we will reflect in our sermon on Psalm 104. If you ever are in the area and you want to join us for worship, we are in the center of Windhoek at number 19 Ludred Street, and our English service is at 9 on a Sunday morning, and our Portuguese service is at 11 on a Sunday morning. For those who are in Windhoek, please do remember that this Saturday morning, the 10th of September, we are having our ladies' breakfast. And next month, on the 2nd of October, our choir will lead us in a concert called Sizzle and Sing. You can email the church office if you want any more information about these topics or about the church, and we will happily respond to you. Our email address is central@iway.na. May God bless you as you join us as we worship together. September in the church is called the season of creation. It is a time when we very specifically take focus onto Almighty God, our Creator, and we pay attention to the wonders of creation that nourishes us and that accommodates us and that delights us. But it's also a time for us to look at our own habits and our own ways of being in among creation, and to recognize our sin towards creation and our need to take responsibility towards creation. You know, a thought has crept into churches and to faithful people that says heaven is important and earth is less important. That says the spiritual things matter and physical things don't matter so much. That progress matters more than taking care of the earth around us. Those thoughts are not logical thoughts. One of the burning issues that we live with because of human activity is that of global warming and climate change. Now, this is not the time to start talking about the science of it. You can go and read about it. And this is not the time to talk about the politics of it, because in some countries especially, this topic has become a very politically charged topic. But let's look at the topic in terms of our faith and what Scripture says to us. What is sure is the earth is getting hotter. The production of greenhouse gases is escalating. We produce so much gas in different ways that it is captured in our atmosphere and it cannot escape. Pollution of the air, together with all other kinds of pollution, have become an issue of great danger for us. And so, as the earth gets hotter, a few things start taking place. Crops are impacted. Less food is being produced in the same amount of land. At the same time, the population of the world keeps going bigger and bigger. With the high temperatures, the oceans are becoming more acidic, which threatens sea life. Diets around the world are becoming more and more sophisticated as people get richer. And meat-based food is increasing the issue of gases into the air. Higher temperatures ask for more water usage, but the more water doesn't exist. You'll see if you watch the news how many rivers in Europe and Asia are down to almost nothing at the moment as we speak. Veld fires are just blazing all over the place. They're making world news, and the cost of food will keep rising. There are two reasons we have to see the warning signs. The first reason why we must take care and notice what is happening around us is we are creating out of the earth that God gave us a place that will no longer be welcoming to us. We put ourselves in danger if we ignore the pain that we're in. The second reason we need to look at the warning signs is this. This earth belongs to God. And when we destroy God's creation, we disrespect and we deeply offend God. So let's look at Psalm 104 and see what it says to us about these things. This is one of the beautiful Psalms that tells us that God is not somebody who created the earth and then went away and sat in heaven. God is connected to God's world. God is not concerned only with heaven. God is concerned also with this world. Do you see, when you look at the Psalm, how the poet tries to describe God's connectedness with the earth? He says, God makes the clouds his chariot. It's a beautiful picture, hey? See the clouds moving in the sky, and it's like God is riding on the clouds. He rides on the wings of the wind. He waters the mountains from his upper chamber. How many are your works, O Lord? Can you see how connected God is with God's creation? Creation declares the existence of God. For us who believe, we look at creation and we say, yes, there is a God. Isn't that true? Creation declares the existence of God. When you look at creation, you can say creation declares the power of God. Creation declares the glory of God. Do you want to argue about that? If you do, I will give you an answer. From Romans chapter 1, St. Paul says, listen to this, Romans chapter 1 verse 20. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power, his divine nature have been clearly understood, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. I read that verse, Romans 1 verse 20. Creation itself declares to us who God is. God is so connected with God's creation. You harm creation, you touch God. Then the Psalm speaks also to us about the dignity of creation. Everything, says Genesis chapter 1, is beautifully made. God looked at it and said, it is good. It is good. It is good. The more we study this world and the creatures in this earth, the more we are amazed at the creatures around us. I don't know whether you've watched the movie called My Octopus Teacher. Has anybody encountered that movie? Anybody else? Good. Amazing, eh? My Octopus Teacher. Go and see if you can find it. We might have just a minute out of it. It's a man from Cape Town. Now you can see where to find it as well.
I remember the day when it all started, seeing this really strange thing. A lot of people say an octopus is like an alien. But the strange thing is, as you get closer to them, you realize that you're very similar in a lot of ways. It's a hard thing to explain, but sometimes you just get a feeling and you know there's something, because the Peter, that's very unusual. There's something to learn here. I hadn't been a person that was overly sentimental towards animals before. I realized I was changing. My relationship with people, with humans, was changing. What she taught me was to feel that you're part of this place, not a visitor. That's a huge difference.
It's a story about a man and an octopus and how much he learns from an octopus. He thought an octopus didn't have a brain. Go and watch that movie. The more we learn about nature around us, the more we are amazed at what God is doing. Psalm tells us in verse 18, the high mountains belong to the wild goats. You thought the earth belonged to us. The earth belongs to all that God has created. The creatures of the earth have as much right to be here as we do. They have dignity, even an octopus. Which means that we as people need to learn humility. When we see the glory of creation, we see the size of creation, and the new telescope that is now flying where is starting to take photographs of other galaxies, and you can't even begin to imagine how far this thing is going to travel and how many photographs it's going to take to send back to Earth of things we've never seen or dreamt of. We see the scale of the universe, of God's creation. We can only look at it with humility as human beings. We need to check our attitude to the earth and everything in it. We share space with everything that God has created, and we realize that the psalm puts us as human beings in our place. In this psalm, number 104, people are not more important than any other part of God's creation. We are not all that matter. Human beings are not the only things that matter. God cares for all of God's creation. The other thing we see in the psalm as we read it is that we are all interdependent on one another. Those of you at school, I'm sure you have learned about ecosystems and how one item in an ecosystem depends on another item. We are all interdependent on one another. The psalm tells us there's water. God creates the water to feed the beasts of the field. God creates the trees to give space for the birds to make nests. The grass grows for the cattle to feed. The plants grow for humans to have food. We depend. Are there any farmers among us? We depend on the sun. We depend on the wind. We depend on the water, on the soil, on growth, on animals. We depend on the day and on the night. We depend on the winter. We depend on birds. We depend on the moon. All of those things have an impact on our lives. Destroy one of those things, it affects everything. The psalm teaches us about the rhythm of creation. It's time for rain. It's coming, hey? It's time for no rain. It's time for winter. It's time for summer. Normally there's time for spring and autumn, and Mr. Namata tells me this morning, spring only lasts 4 days in Namibia. The psalm says there's the moon that marks the seasons for us. It's time for day and time for night. The sun, says verse 19, the sun knows when to come up and when to go down. And for half the year, The sun is here longer, and for the other half of the year, the sun is here for shorter. Light and dark, dry and wet, hot and cold are all punctuations in the rhythm of our climate. They help us to live on this earth, that it can sustain us. The earth depends on those cycles in so many ways. But when we allow the climate to get out of kilter, we set off a course of events that we have no control over. Temperatures go up, ice melts, islands begin to sink, and it's already happening. Crops begin to fail, dams and rivers dry up, coral reefs disappear, animals get extinct, and all of humanity become part of a sick world. Dear friends, let us sit up and pay attention to God's word. Let us respect the dignity of all of God's creation. Let us learn humility towards the rest of creation. Let us be conscious of how dependent we are on the things around us. And let us learn to cooperate with the rhythm of nature. Let us take note. Let us rejoice in the beauty and the wonder of creation. Let us pay attention to the little things we do and the little things we can do to make this earth a more healthy place. And let us talk about these things to make other people, our families, our children especially, aware that our climate and the rhythm of the climate is important. Because the earth is beautiful, but she's also fragile. And she's also important because it is our home for now. And most of all, because this earth belongs to God, our Creator. And so, let's, if Philip has prepared it, read for us from Psalm 104, I'll read the third one. How many are your works, Lord? There is the sea, vast and spacious, teeming with creatures beyond number, living things both large and small. There the ships go to and fro, and Leviathan, the sea monster, which you formed to frolic there. When you give it to them, they gather it up. When you open your hand, they are satisfied with good things. When you hide your face, they are terrified. When you take away their breath, they die and return to dust. May the glory of the Lord endure forever. May the Lord rejoice in his works. He who looks at the earth and it trembles, who touches the mountains and they smoke. I will sing to the Lord all my life. I will sing praise to my God as long as I live. May my reputation be easy as I rejoice in the Lord. Those are the last verses of Psalm 104. So now, dear friends, something that we haven't done for a long time. The peace of the Lord be with you. Now, will you turn to the person sitting next to you or behind you and share with him, the peace of the Lord be with you, and the answer and also with you.